Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I'm going to be talking a bit about the journey, how much the struggle impacts OCD sufferers. Now, this is one for those of you who have got OCD, that are working through OCD currently, but it's also a good video for friends and family so that they understand a bit about the journey. Because what we often do is we forget when we're on this journey and we're focusing on getting better and all the things involved in that, we easily forget we don't forget because we're involved in the struggle ourselves. So we understand the struggle, but it's not highlighted enough often what the experience is like. You'll see on social media accounts people saying, "Oh, OCD's hell, OCD's terrible," and of course we understand that struggle. But let's talk a little bit about the journey. So first of all, the OCD journey is very, very alone. It's a very sort of isolating journey until you meet people with OCD, because what happens with the journey is that you're experiencing it in your head. And as our experiences are experienced by us alone, we do not, other people can't see it. It's not like a physical illness that you can see. So it's very easy for people to not, as we know, not understand the suffering and the experience that the person's going through. And also the problem there is that what's happening is people are also because they can't see it, OCD can very easily come across as sort of whining, where the person's complaining over nothing, and then the parent thinks, "Oh my God, they just keep going on about it. Can't they just sort of toughen up and get used to it?" Which is not what it's like. If it was so simplistic as that, the aviation tycoon Howard Hughes wouldn't have been stuck with it and had a very, very difficult life with it. And We'll go through sort of my own journey a bit in this talk about this, so that we can see how that relates. I mean, where my OCD originally started was around the age of 17 from an unprotected sex encounter, and basically then I was terrified of health OCD. Now, let's take, for example, now, at the moment I've got an eye infection in this eye. Now, if I was in the middle of my health OCD time, I would be very concerned that was then going to spread to the brain, cause some kind of rare meningitis or whatever. It would go down that path. So I wouldn't be able to just sit with it. I wouldn't be able to think, what if whatever's happening now, and leave it there. It would always be moving along to the next scenario. So I think the most important thing to remember is when especially as we progress and we get better and we move along, we forget a lot of what was involved and the different struggles we went through. Or for those of you who are in that part now, who are going through that section, how this relates to them. So, okay, of course OCD can come across whiny, especially in relation to things like health OCD and ROCD. The person's complaining over a sort of a medical health-related problem that other people aren't so concerned about. And then they think, well, can't you just sort of shut up about this, stop causing a scene, stop bringing this on for attention, or whatever things in these sort of old views people can have. So I think that's important. Then then you've got an ROCD, as the person comes across about talking about their boyfriend or the partner and breaking up with partner, and that doesn't even get much sympathy from the OCD community. The OCD community is not very sympathetic towards ROCD, even unless the person has ROCD themselves. And even if the person has ROCD themselves, they're still not sympathetic to other people that have got ROCD, because it does sound whiny. It sounds like, my boyfriend doesn't love me, then I can't handle it. What if I don't know he loves me, then I'm not going to be able to stand it, and vice versa. And people just think, well, like, that's so irrelevant to the scheme of the thing that I'm concerned about. Like, maybe they're concerned about going to jail forever, or maybe they're concerned about getting a very serious illness. Maybe they're concerned about committing a very bad crime, and so on. So that is how that situation will play out. They tend to not be very sympathetic towards that often. Now, along the OCD journey, obviously takes time, so we tend to get frustrated, and we then put in a lot of work as well to get better. And then the problem there that occurs is that family aren't always very understanding, and friends, as when you've been doing the work for a long time, they can't see that work. So they'll often just say to the person, why can't you just go back and do your exposures? Why can't you just do more exposures? Why aren't you to do what your therapist told you to do, and so like that? So they're sort of almost shut down every time. And that's because people do find it whiny. And there is, of course, with anything, there is a fine line, because there is a certain element of whining in OCD when the person's not rational and they're just frustrated and they do that. So there is an element of that, as well as the disorder being interpreted as that because of its very nature. So we do have that problem in there. Whilst the person is learning to sort of take responsibility for their OCD, face fears, exposures, not complain so much, and work towards it, whilst that transition is occurring, they don't often get a lot of sympathy. And when they do make that transition and now very rarely complaining and now doing everything to get better and so on, family still at that point will just say, well, do your exposures, go and speak to therapists, because they kind of want to push the problem away because of the frustration with it. That is very, very common, because they find it is persistent. I work with OCD every day with people, so I'm seeing people, coming with questions, and they're very fast at you because they want relief instantly. So because they want that relief instantly, they will just the tone of voice will just sort of be like, and then what about this, and then what about that, and then what about this, and then what about that, and then do anything about this, and then can you give me an exposure? Can you give me more exposures? Because they want to eliminate it, they want to get rid of it, they want it gone this second, now, and that's what's fueling it a lot of the time. So you got that going on. Now, what other things in the journey that are challenging? Feeling lost and alone when they've gone to a few different people and they haven't got better, because very few people understand OCD. Then they think they're treatment resistant. They feel really hopeless and alone. Their parents then think that there's something wrong with them because they're not getting better, like they're not putting in the work, or they're not they're just being awkward or whatever. That then occurs. So then the person's family and them, they don't even want to talk to their family about OCD, or they're the opposite. They're going through compulsively telling their family all day long how it feels and wanting them to understand, but them never being able to understand, and that becomes a sort of fight going back and forth all the time. So you've got that. Other parts of the journey. Obviously, it's chronic, it's long, it's gonna wax and wane. So that will be maybe when they're going on holidays, they find it challenging, and then the family will say, like, God, we've just got this one holiday and now you're causing this problem, because it turns up the heat for weddings, birthdays, holidays, all that kind of stuff. So you've got that. Going to doctors, loads and loads. People see them as over the top. Then the doctors don't give them sympathy. I got kicked out of doctor's surgeries many times, where they sort of were almost yelling at me because of, not sort of, they were, because I'd been going in too much, and I was completely locked on. I used to go in for an STD test, walk out, think, what did I see on the floor? That means it needs to be retaken. Can you imagine how annoying that was for the clinic? Bloody annoying. But that's because of the disorder. Then what can you tell me? Did she take the blood correctly? I think I saw the blood wasn't taken correctly. I think I should redo it. How accurate are the test results? Bloody hell, it goes on and on. You know the journey. So it's like that. So looking back, at the journey now, with this view of things, is different. What else? Yeah, well, look, with health OCD, like I was relating just to saying about this eye infection I currently got, when I used to have any flus or colds or anything, I used to be completely convinced that I was getting pneumonia, and then I was going to be on a drip, and then the antibiotics wouldn't work, I was going to die. So even just a thing like this eye infection would have gone from 0 to 100. And that's definitely what would have happened. So yeah, that is what is going to happen along the journey. We have to learn to pace ourselves and get used to this as we go along. Now, I very rarely get anxious about anything health related, because I always think, well, let's just see how it goes one day at a time. And even in all seriousness, although that wouldn't be, I don't know if I would be as rational in the situation, I might be pretty anxious. But like, even in the worst case scenario, you die or some kind of injury, wouldn't be ideal. But there is no. Let me demonstrate something. There is no. I had to get over many various aspects of OCD. magical thinking related things that were linked to everything, not even wanting to say a bad thing. Like I could say now, I hope I go blind in this eye, I've got the eye infection. Please, 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 can I go blind in this eye? And that makes no difference to me. It's complete nonsense. Just saying words is irrelevant. I hope my mum has a heart attack tonight and dies in a horrible, tragic way. Irrelevant. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. Because it's just words, but we humans are so rational. We believe these words are so powerful, so strong, and will do things in life. No, they don't. That's not the reality of how these things work. Let's have a look here. Next, let's have a look at the next things. What else was I going to cover? I was going to cover some other areas of this disorder. Recovery. When you're getting recovered, you don't even. Yeah, but can I just point out with those words as well? They wouldn't matter if they were being disrespectful either. Like fuck my mum, I fucking hate my mum, that kind of stuff. It doesn't. It's irrelevant. But that stuff I wouldn't have liked to have even uttered those words before. Recovery. It gets to a point where. Recovery gets to a point where when you're feeling a lot better, but no one knows the journey you've been on because it's been a completely isolated journey that only you know. And so because of that situation, you are being on that journey yourself. When you start recovering and getting better, nobody sees that. Nobody is aware of that. So it's a transition of your own, which I was transitioning on my own in that way and was completely felt over the moon, but no one understood the journey you've been on because it was just a sort of battle that I had been battling in my head. What other things did I want to mention about this? OCD journey. Yes. I think another thing is with patience. Don't expect other people to understand your OCD like you do. I mean, how much do you know about immune system disorders, specific rare ones? You don't. So they're not going to understand OCD and they're going to get the term mixed up. People go mental about the term being mixed up, and rightfully so, it needs the awareness, but you don't need to go mad about it. People aren't going to understand these things. It's an easy mistake. People say I'm depressed when they don't understand clinical depression. We're going to do that. We sort of raise awareness about it and go for that, but we don't need to be driving ourselves mad. It's always us driving ourselves mad about it, okay? They're not going to understand it. We raise awareness about it, but at the end of the day, people aren't going to understand it like we do. Let's have a look at other things. You don't need everyone to have OCD. You don't need to connect with everyone on that level. You'll have some people in the OCD community, which especially through all the things I do with the community, you'll meet lots of people and you'll feel very connected, but you don't need all of them. Maybe a few friends, and even if you didn't have any, it wouldn't make a difference. Work with lots of people one-to-one basis that never meet anyone else with OCD, just do just fine. You don't need that. We think we need that, but we don't. How long did it take recovery to take? If you watch my video from yesterday, that goes into that in detail. I just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about that journey. Recovery is where you're not scared of these things. Like I was trying to demonstrate in this video in relation to my own journey, and things that you could say or do, or just showing those, and in relation to health, OCD, and so on. It wasn't always that way. In the past, it was certainly not like that. I used to go back and forth into GP surgery. I was going to GP twice a week. I used to be just Googling stats for health all day long. Age ranges, did I get if I'm in this age range? How likely is it? Has anyone else got it? I mean, COVID would have been very difficult for me had I lived through that time. And, especially with the relation to passing it on to people and feeling guilty that I could have infected someone and all the risks involved in that. It's challenging. It's challenging for anyone with OCD because hand sanitizer is like giving an alcoholic and saying, hey, you've been recovered for 20 years. I want you just to take a sip of beer 10 times a day and stay calm. The guy would be like, well, that ain't going to work. Well, that's kind of a bit like the COVID situation. It's a hard balancing act. I'm afraid that I'm a bad person because of my intrusive thoughts. I'm scared that it's going to be like this for us. Well, what do you think of me when I just said the fuck my mum thing a moment ago? I didn't want to swear, but I thought it was a good way to indicate, to describe the problem. Couldn't have done it any other way without So would you think I'm a bad person for that? And if so, you need to read the book The Myth of Self-Esteem, specifically chapter 4, Psychotherapy and the Value of a Human, where it breaks down that there are no good and bad humans. It's an idea we've created. It's very black and white, rigid thinking. And humans don't operate like that. We're not living in Disneyland where we think like that and been taught to think like that. But we easily do fall into that cycle. You seem so calm even with your eye infection. It gives me hope and health anxiety. I'm very calm. There's a video, I think, of last year somewhere on this account where I broke an elbow. Very rarely did I get anxious about that. It was just what it was, and just rolled through that. And to see an extreme example of that is Alfie on YouTube. Alfie's video. If you go on my YouTube channel and look up Alfie's video, he got diagnosed with stage 4 bone cancer when he was working with me for OCD. And the guy was super chilled during that, and we used to all be blown away by it because it was a great example of perspective. Of course, he had his ups and downs, but I mean, the guy's a real great example of that. What does it mean to get under the fears? It means just to have a look at why we're scared and break that down and see that there's actually nothing to be scared of. We think there's something to be scared of. Fear is always an illusion, always. We think it's terrifying. We think, oh my God, it's fact that there's no other way around it, but it's only a perspective that's causing that. The only catalyst for that is our belief. The catalyst for the fear that causes the fear and anxiety cycle is a perspective that we are holding. And we know that because there are other people who don't have different perspectives and aren't scared about the thing you're scared about. So, for example, the fact of me with my eye not being scared shows that you with your eye can't be scared. It's not I've got a different brain, it's just a perspective. Okay, guys, I will be on Instagram Live soon, probably the next day or so, and I will see you there, and I will be covering question answers, as I've been saying. I will be covering in the next one, but I just wanted to get a few topics out of the way, and I'll speak to you guys on there. Take it easy, guys. See you later.